Hi. 4 years ago, I pointed out, for your sleuthing pleasure, a few Argentinian stocks. Look it up. Now, why did I point them out? 4 reasons. The first reason, because Argentina is a fairly predictable cycle of corruption and rejuvenation boom. At the time, Argentina was mired in corruption. Second reason, Argentinian stocks were deadly cheap. Third reasons, the corruption was ending. The fourth reason, my US sources hinted to me that the US Navy needs to find safe ports for its ships after the US State Department will likely, allegedly, kick out President Bolsonaro in Brazil and re-elect Lula. I know it sounds kooky, but that's what my informers were saying. And how does this relate to Argentinian stocks? Because the only other choice for the US Navy in the Southern Hemisphere would be Argentina. I know it sounds like conspiracy theories, but my informers have usually been right in the past and didn't care if they were considered crazy for their opinions. Let's go over these 4 reasons one by one. First, Argentina was mired in corruption, but this was ending. The first part of the sentence is obvious. The Kirchner's family were allegedly stealing money from Argentina and hiding the money of all places allegedly in holding companies in US Western states that traditionally do not let the federal government look in, allegedly. The second was valuation. Based on all the metrics, Argentinian stocks were at the time stupid cheap, cheaper than cheap, being given away. Now, you may say, how can I trust numbers in a place where inflation was more than 100% per year? The answer is, Argentina was and still is a place where companies know how to work financially with inflationary numbers. Their adjustments are usually right, and so the numbers adjusted are, for me, meaningful. At any rate, at a certain point, I just knew that if there's going to be Argentina in the future again, which was once the Europe of South America, the main companies there will do well and will perhaps have their stocks reach previous peaks. And what were these previous peaks? Often 10 to 20 times the then current prices of 4 years ago. The third reason was corruption was ending. But how did I know that? Because first, informers told me. But second, I do read filings, and the filing of Bank Macro, BMA symbol, noted that the Argentina prosecutor was closing the charges against the bank CEO. This was for me a big gong that told me that corruption overhang was being lifted. But the fourth reason was the conspiracy theories. The story was that the US Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, would allegedly meddle with the Brazilian election, bring back Lula, the corrupt leftist who was then in jail, and magically cause the removal of Bolsonaro, the Brazilian Trump. I know it sounds crazy, but here's the crazier part. The story went that Blinken would do that even though this would mean that Brazil would no longer let US Navy use its ports, which Blinken didn't care about, allegedly, because he doesn't like the US military, allegedly. However, my informant said the US Navy did care a lot and allegedly would help the new guy get elected in Argentina. This guy was Milei, which at the time was not known, who magically got the support of some Argentinian media barons with US connections. The story was that Blinken and the State Department were still pushing for Argentina to use electronic voting machines, as was done in Brazil and in 2020 in the US, but background counter pressure from the US nixed that. It's complicated. Now remember, all this was 1.5 years before the Brazilian and Argentinian elections. I checked into all this, did some sleuthing of my own. I do speak some Portuguese. Eu falo um pouco português, muito pouco. And my vocabulario in Portuguese é muito pobre, but I do speak it. Anyway, I sleuthed some more and took some stock positions, and at the time pointed out some stocks for your sleuthing pleasure in these clips. I even noted the above crazy theories to you. And before we continue then, did I really believe in these conspiracy theories? The answer is that as a sleuth, I keep an open mind, but more importantly, I really don't care if they are right or wrong. I really don't. All I care about is two things. First, that the informers who told me about them have been almost always right in the past, and they do not care a bit if they are considered crazy. Like me, they are only happy about making money. But second, the proof of the pudding is in the eating. Did it work or did it not? In this case, it did. Lula was indeed sprung from prison in Brazil. Milei did win. Brazil did forbid for a while on the quiet US Navy ships from docking in its ports. And Milei, who did win, allowed the US Navy into his ports. And meanwhile, Argentinian stocks have already begun to soar, even as the above was considered a far-out theory. Now, 4 years have passed. Argentinian stocks are all now 10, 12, and 15 times higher, 119 times higher. That's Vista Energy. What now? Well, last week I began to sell, and I'm out of some of them. Why was I out? 3 reasons. Reason 1, because of some background counterpush, allegedly by parts of the US empire, which means that Milei is now considered a major enemy, so more resources are going to be allocated to fight him. Reason 2, because of the first time, 2 of the Argentinian companies I own showed somewhat disappointing earnings. But third, based on ratios of the last 3 cycles, price to revenue, price to cash flow, price to book, price to this, price to that, the stocks are now flying higher to the historical peak. But will they perhaps get higher, as in the past they did? This is very possible, which brings me to the pains and joys of investing in cyclical multi-baggers. There are 4 reasons for the pain. I am counting now reasons. The first pain: multi-baggers, cyclical ones, make you feel stupid at the beginning when you usually buy too early, by as much as a year or more. You buy at 3, they go to 2. You buy at 2, they go to 1, and you feel stupid. Second pain: they make you feel stupider as they soar, when you are sorry for not having bought more when you did buy. Third reason for feeling stupid: at the end, you sell too soon, like now, after the stocks are up 10 to 12, sometimes 15 times, when they can go up 50% more or even 100% more. But based on my experience, that's the foremost stage, fear of missing out. There, sleuths are taught not to stay. What's the fourth pain? That's the harsh renting volatility. Say you bought a few good multi-baggers in your portfolio, say 4 or 5 of them for 10% each of the portfolio, and they have all gone up 10 times. So now Argentina is 500% of your original portfolio, if the rest is flat. So now, every up and down of this position can cause you a heart attack, especially if the stocks are often up and down 10% in a day. To have your portfolio go up and down 10% in a day, you'll need nitroglycerin for your heart. The natural urge is to sell some of it as it rises to reduce volatility. And here is the kicker: if you are running other people's money, your boss will force you to sell some of the stocks to avoid heart attack by the clients. However, I am here to tell you that if you are a private investor like me, you should resist strongly this urge to sell, or you'll never get rich, because you'll never get multi-baggers. You'll get only a piece of it. But isn't it imprudent to hold so many multi-baggers? It would be if the stocks were growth stocks, because you never know when they will end. But they are, remember, cyclical multi-baggers with fairly predictable ratios of previous peaks and previous bottoms. So at the bottom, you have a higher certainty that they are cheap. Like at the top, you have a higher certainty they are not cheap. All of which means I am out for most of my Argentinian stocks, who are up 12 to 13 times over the last 4 years. I have kept 2, one of which, in my opinion, can still go up 2 or even 3 times from here, which would be wonderful. Which one is it? I'm not going to tell you. I'm not going to repeat any of the names here. Go back over my video clips of the last 5 years and you will see for yourself. So much for the pains, which are the fluctuations, and of course, the pain of paying capital gains tax. But that's the pain I'd rather have. And so, I gather, would you, wouldn't you? Next time I'll mention 2 more potential multi-baggers I've mentioned before who seem to be working out. So that's all for today. Please let me know what you think of the above, and if you like it, subscribe to the channel and forward this clip to all your friends subscribers who they subscribe to. Then buy my books, The Sleuth Investor, The Advanced Sleuth Investor, and if you like them, give them a review on Amazon, which I hope will be a good one. I'll see you next time, and meantime, thank you very much for watching.